Good evening, and welcome to Counterculture with Danielle D'Souza Gill. The culture's gone crazy, media's gone mad, and reason has become repugnant. Here we focus on facts and how to fight back. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the raid that took place at Mar-a-Lago. It's an amazing irony of our current political discourse that the same group most likely to accuse their political rivals of being Nazis are in fact the most Nazi-like faction in American politics. Naturally, the group in question is the left. After years of vitriol, they seem to have become brainwashed by their own extremist rhetoric and convinced themselves that anyone holding an opinion that even remotely deviates from their left-wing dogma is an existential threat and therefore justifies them to do whatever they want to them. And the problem with existential threats is that they're, well, existential, meaning they threaten one's very existence. Therefore, such threats must be dealt with swiftly and with a kind of severity bordering on malice. So the left does things like hunt, raid, and arrest their political opponents. And their biggest threat is, of course, Trump. They're deathly afraid of him. Ever since 2016, the biggest upset to the establishment in a long time, his big win, they've been desperate to get rid of him. And when I say it's the left doing this, I mean specifically the subset of the political left known as the Federal Law Enforcement and the Department of Justice. After all, the two are basically synonymous now. After years of brazen and unchecked unethical behavior and corruption, that's what the DOJ has become. The jackboot stormtroopers of the establishment left. It's been hard to ignore, especially lately, though there are those on the right who refuse to see this corrupt paradigm for what it is. But with the raid on Mar-a-Lago, many people on the right, and even some on the left, are coming out now saying the FBI and DOJ have lost all credibility. Two recent Trafalgar surveys reveal that nearly 80% of people believe we live under a two-tiered system of justice, and nearly 50% believe the FBI raid was orchestrated by Trump's political enemies and not by an impartial system of justice. This change in opinion has been a long time coming. For anyone who's been paying attention, federal law enforcement lost its way years ago. As conservative attorney Harmeet Dillon pointed out, this is not a sudden development.
You know, I think we all have to be very aware. If you still have respect for the DOJ and the FBI at this point, particularly the FBI, you are not paying attention. Certainly, as a longtime lawyer, the scales have fallen from my eyes. And what the abuses that I've seen in my career, it is very hard for me to take anything that these people are taking seriously. And citizens who are about to be unleashed at the opposite end of 87,000 agents and then prosecutions from IRS, we should all be aware that this is abuse, it is systematic, and it is coming for the average American citizen. If they can do this to the former president, they will do it to supporters of the president, which is half of the United States.
The genesis of this transformation stems from the passing of the Patriot Act in the aftermath of 9/11. In exchange for our freedoms and privacy, we invited the government to monitor citizens without cause or warrant. It was a fundamental perversion of the purpose of the government, transforming bureaucratic functionaries from public servants to public overseers. Then Obama took that government power and politicized it against conservatives. He sent Lois Lerner's IRS after Republicans and told the Department of Homeland Security to leave the border unguarded. All the while, he removed from power leaders who were critical of his regime or even sympathetic to Republicans and Tea Party conservatives. It got so bad that by the end of his 8 years, FBI Director James Comey declared that Hillary Clinton was innocent of one of the worst crimes imaginable: the compromise of years of fusion intelligence by running the highest levels of American classified information through an illegitimately established private server. Keep in mind that the primary function of the intelligence classification system is not to inconvenience bureaucrats, but to protect people. People who put their lives on the line to defend and protect every man, woman, and child in our country. And that is exactly who Hillary Clinton and her cronies jeopardized with their inexcusable actions. She betrayed you, me, and everyone else in this country and put us all at greater risk of physical harm. And FBI Director James Comey did nothing about it. And despite the clear legal case and dire need to prosecute Hillary, not a single FBI agent spoke out about this profound betrayal. Not one. Not a single whistleblower cared about America, their fellow countrymen, or the Constitution they swore an oath to uphold and defend. Comey will be remembered by history as one of many corrupt and treasonous figures involved in this bureaucratic coup against our democracy. Likewise, his successor, Christopher Wray, will also earn his place in corrupt law enforcement. Wray, like Comey, insulated the Bureau from accountability by offhandedly dismissing evidence of a politicized coup run by his own subordinates. Since the beginning, conservatives have been pointing out glaring inconsistencies in the FBI's Trump-Russia probe, inconsistencies which were completely ignored despite pointing to a completely fabricated basis for the investigation. And it turns out, thanks to the Durham investigation, these suspicions were correct all along. Not only did the FBI not have actionable intelligence to investigate Trump, they actively participated in its fabrication. They lied and planted evidence, as they have done many times since with the prosecution of General Flynn and the defendants in the Whitmer kidnapping trials. Using evidence they knew was phony, the Department of Justice launched the Mueller investigation of Trump. 50 FBI agents participated in this treasonous farce. Not a single special agent came forward with the truth about what was going on behind the scenes. Not one. And because they were never held to account for their crimes, their corruption only became more shameless and more extreme. They threw Pam Hemphill, an octogenarian grandmother battling cancer, into jail for the crime of entering a public building. They publicly shamed former Trump advisor Peter Navarro by dragging him off a plane and placing him in leg irons. They drove armored personnel carriers full of agents in body armor and long guns onto the lawns of countless Americans and threw entire families into jail as if they were terrorists or drug dealers. They are even now continuing to conduct kangaroo court trials before thuggish D.C. judges with insatiable anti-Trump bloodlust. And now Attorney General Merrick Garland and Director Christopher Wray would have you believe they knew nothing about the FBI raid on Mar-a-Lago, while at the same time claiming they helped plan and approve it. Don't believe them. This is yet another attempt to avoid responsibility for their openly criminal misconduct. The legacies of both Garland and Wray have already been set in stone. They will be forever remembered as cruel and corrupt traitors. They feign innocence, but don't believe for a second they mean it. You have to think about this from their perspective. The FBI crime syndicate has, along with the rest of the D.C. swamp, in order to provide a pretense for installing an illegitimate placeholder. The real reason the feds are going after Trump and his supporters has nothing to do with law and order or classified documents. In reality, it has everything to do with the fact Trump and his supporters serve as uncomfortable reminders that Biden is not now, and not ever, popular. It's an unsettling fact pattern for Mr. 81 million votes. The problem for Garland and Wray is they can't shrug their way out of this situation. They can't claim ignorance about a handful of bad apples and promise to fix it by having agents take extra training. They are deeply and intimately implicated in these high crimes and murderous abuses. So now their only path forward is to somehow arrest their way to a majority pro-establishment America. It's either that or total capitulation. There is no third option. It would appear the bug-eating, baby-killing leftists and their crime syndicate goons have completely lost the plot. They had no idea that the power they once so gleefully wielded against their political enemies would also burden them, permanently, with the mantle of oppressor and jackboot. History will remember them and the rank-and-file agents for their faithlessness, their lies, their lust for power, but mostly they will be remembered for the role they fulfilled in the story of 21st century America, as villains, worthy of the pantheon of history's worst monsters, right up there with the Praetorian Guard, the KGB, and the Red Guard. Make sure to follow me on social media on Truth Social, Getter, and Rumble. I will see you next week, and remember, we are the counterculture.